to clear this up so that we're all acting within our authority and resolve the matter. And that's what we did. And we were hoping to have meetings. I will mention to you, when we learned the governor was considering withholdings, I called twice to talk about it, and neither of those phone calls were returned. And then when I called his chief of staff, that phone call was also not returned. So we went in and did the audit, and we thought, okay, let's start a dialogue now about it, and we can probably resolve the matter. We did not get a response to our letter. We did not get a call for a meeting. There was no effort to talk to the legislature or put it on the special session. It was simply a press release that said the auditor is wrong. That's what came out of the governor's office. So we got together and said, now do we just say, okay, you're right. We don't live in a democracy. The governor can do whatever he wants. Doesn't have to worry about the Constitution, and just move on. And we have plenty of things to do, believe me. We're overstretched. We have more audits than we can possibly do right now. Or do we actually stand up for all these people, the parents as teachers, children's services, math and science tutoring, higher education, scholarships, domestic violence, Medicaid, port authorities, all things, and say, somebody has to represent them as well. Now, our budget was also cut. The budget was cut for $300,000 because the legislature had authorized a comparative audit. What we were going to do is compare best practices among the agencies. It wasn't a regular budget appropriation for my staff or anything like that. It was simply, a lot of the legislature thought it would be a good idea with this tight budget situation if we went out and compared best practices on procurement, on financial controls, on compliance with authority, things like that. We were going to issue an audit saying, okay, here are the best practices we've seen among the agencies, and this is how you can save some money. So we did want to do that audit, and that was also withheld by the governor. It wasn't about my appropriation or my office or my budget. It was about doing a comparative audit to help save the state money. It would have involved, however, looking into agencies where the governor's appointees are the chairpeople of. And that was also cut. Now, I raised that in the lawsuit because, number one, it was one of the many things that was cut, and number two, it helps me get legal standing to sue. There's two bases for standing. One, that I'm the auditor, which gives one basis for standing, and the other is that I was personally aggrieved, which gives the other basis for standing. So we raised the issue, but it's $300,000 out of $172 million. It was never a major part of this lawsuit. It was never a significant piece. It certainly wasn't the governor's wrong to cut the auditor's budget to pay for rebuilding devastation caused by the Joplin tornado. That had nothing to do with it. And we did it because we were one of many parties, including the legislature, which also was cut. We filed a lawsuit. Our intent was to go to the court and see who's right. I mean, that's what you do in the court. You see who's right. We think we're right. The governor thinks he's right. At the very least, we'll get some clarity from the courts. It'll probably go to the Supreme Court at some point, and they'll state, what is the auditor's responsibility? What is the governor's responsibility? What is the legislature's responsibility? When can withholdings be made? What does that provision of the Constitution mean that says you can only withhold during the fiscal year? What does that provision of the Constitution mean that talks about separation of powers? We'll get some clarity. And I'm willing to live with whatever the result of that is. I think we're right. I'm confident, but I won't presume to say what the Supreme Court's going to do. I don't know. What I do know is that somebody needs to stand up for all these people who are losing their jobs and losing their programs because of what the governor just did with the withhold. Somebody needs to do that. And that's what I thought I would do, and that's what we did. And that's why we filed the lawsuit.